Hey, what's up everyone? Paul from Grindhouse Funhouse. It's record store day time again, and I got all the vinyl soundtracks that will be released on RSD 2025 you may or may not want to add to your collection. Saturday, April 12th will be the day this all goes down at your local record store. All the vinyls features here are taken from both official US and UK RSD lists. There seem to be a few unofficial soundtracks tagging themselves as RSD 2025 releases out there. But I wanted to keep it legit to both of the official lists. So if you might ask yourself, hey, why is this on your list? Well, there's your answer. Release-wise, we're going back up in numbers with 18 to last year's 13, so more vinyls to throw your money at. And as always, it's a mix of scores and various artists' soundtracks. Now, people brace yourself, because the one missing and quite honestly shocking development from this year's RSD is there is no releases from Ennio Morricone at all. If there was one constant through all the RSDs, was at least one release from the maestro. Have they just run out? How can this be? All right, I'll try to get over it and get things started by splitting the list into three categories. Newer releases, so basically soundtracks for movies released this year and the last. Then releases from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. And finally, my favorite category, all the exploitation / grindhouse / horror movie soundtracks titles that will be available. As an aside, if you want to get smashed while watching me talking about all them sweet vinyl soundtracks releases RSD 2025 has to offer, drink every time I say the word releases. If you stick to it like the drinking champ that you are, you might end up blacking out by the end of this video. So let's start with the new releases. We got three. First one being the 2024 British supernatural horror thriller Black Cab starring Nick Frost of the Cornetto trilogy fame with his pal Simon Pegg. Here he plays a jolly good-natured cab driver who kidnaps a couple, bringing them to a remote haunted road, revealing disturbing motives and his true intentions. This was released back in November on Shudder, and if you just heard about this movie existence just now, I don't blame you. But it does exist, an Australian label Invada Records, which, fun fact, was founded by Jeff Barrows, one-third of Portishead, one if not the greatest trip-hop hand next to Massive Attack. Black Cab's score was composed by Gazelle Twin, aka Elizabeth Bernholz, who also scored 2016's Out of Body, 2021's The Power, and 2023's Then You Run. You can already stream the score online, but if you want to own it, you'll be able to get it on transparent vinyl, which only 500 pressed copies awaits you in stores. Next is Les Règles de l'Art, which means the rules of art. It's a French comedy / heist movie inspired by true events about three Frenchies robbing the Paris Museum of Modern Art of 5 of their paintings, which is valued to about $110 million. The robbery quickly becomes very publicized, which leads those three Frenchies into a downward spiral of comical zaniness, one would assume. The movie is coming out at the end of the month in France. But you can already buy the soundtrack to a movie no one has seen yet on Record Store Day through the Because Music label. Apparently, it's all 100% new original songs done by the Lemme, a band composed of Lionel Lemme and German-French music composer David Menke. It's a 1 LP black vinyl release, which I don't know how many copies will be available. And finally, for the new releases, Wicked, the film adaptation of the Broadway musical, which tells the untold story of Elphaba, the future Wicked Witch of the West, and her friendship with Glinda, who becomes Glinda the Good, set in the land of Oz before Dorothy's arrival. But you know what? I didn't have to tell you that. I'm sure you already knew this. I certainly did, because I'm such a huge Wicked head. It's good to laugh. There's already other versions of this on vinyl, but what makes this one different is that it's released on Record Store Day and is a limited and numbered 2 LP set pressed on green glitter and pink glitter vinyl. Oh yeah, and you get a poster you can hang right above your toilet. Like I said, it's an RSD exclusive release with 2,000 copies of green glitter and pink glitter vinyl through Republic Records, pressed for this most special occasion, fleecing fans even more out of their hard-earned money. Next category is for the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the 2000 releases. Basically, all the soundtrack vinyls that I didn't want to create subcategories for, I grouped in here. First up, the 1977 Mel Brooks satirical comedy High Anxiety. which he wrote on, produced and directed, and was his first leading man speaking role. You get the Brooks regulars in the movie as well, with Madeline Kahn, Cloris Leachman, and R.V. Corman. The score is done by John Morris, who was a longtime collaborator of Mel Brooks. It was originally released through Asylum Records back in 1978. Now it's an RSD exclusive released through Rhino Records on yellow and red vinyl, pressed at 2,800 copies. Up next is 1979 Over the Edge, a coming-of-age tale directed by Jonathan Kaplan and has the distinction of being Matt Dillon's film debut. It's basically about a group of bored teenagers rebelling against the autorita and start stirring some shit up in the community of New Granada after the death of one of their own. It's a less chill, Dazed and Confused, which director Richard Linklater said was inspired by Over the Edge. The various artists soundtrack for this one is a mix of top 40 hits and the new wave bands that were hitting at the time. You got Cheap Tricks, The Cars, Van Halen, The Ramones, that's what you're getting here. The soundtrack's original pressing was back in 1979 on Warner Brothers, pretty much worldwide. Here's my Canadian copy here, where it does show up a fair amount in the used bins of the local record stores I go to. So it is not a rare title to find. Like High Anxiety, it's an RSD exclusive release through Rhino Records, pressed on New Granada blue vinyl at only 3,000 copies available. Up next is the cult classic 1984 zany comedy Top Secret from the Zaz Collective, Jim Abrams, and the Zucker brothers, David and Jerry. This came after the success of Airplane, which its soundtrack was part of last year's RSD, and the not so successful then but stone cold classic TV series now with Police Squad. This was also Val Kilmer's film debut, crushing it as rock star Nick Rivers. And at the time I was working on this video, we found out that Val had passed away at the way too young age of 65. Fuck cancers, all I have to say about that, but also I hope he's at peace now. And we do have his amazing filmography to remember him by. Like Top Secret and its soundtrack, which includes on side A, 6 songs performed by Val in the movie, and on side B, score cues from Maurice Jarre. Its original release was back in 1984 on Varese Sarabande and the Tur label in the UK. This time around, it's through the Rusted Wave / 1984 publishing label, newly remastered with a gatefold jacket containing original press images and pressed on Top Secret undercover ultra clear vinyl. It's an RSD limited run / regional focus release, which means these titles are either originally based and sold at specific stores, or the pressing of them is limited to 1,000 copies, which this one is. Alright, up next, The Never Ending Story, a classic kids fantasy movie from my childhood. Wolfgang Petersen of Get Off My Plane fame directed it.
Get off my plane.
The score is by Klaus Doldinger and everyone's favorite Italian disco producer Giorgio Moroder. The theme song, Never Ending Story, performed by the lead singer of Kaja Gugu, Christopher Hamill, and Beth Anderson, was a top 10 hit back in the day. This had an initial vinyl release back in 1984 on EMI Records all over the world, and now Rhino Records is at it again with an RSD exclusive with 2,000 copies pressed on Starlight vinyl. Switching it up now to a 90s forgotten indie film, 1997's First Love, Last Rites, starring Natasha Gregson-Wagner and my favorite Scientologist Giovanni Ribisi. It's about two lovers bumbling through their first time in this supposedly sexy film set in the Louisiana Bayou. You know, I am legitimately a big Giovanni Ribisi fan since I first saw him in the TV series Davis Rules and in the last season of The Wonder Years back in the early 90s, but even I hadn't heard about this movie until right now. It's directed by J.C. Peretz, who went on to direct 2011's Our Idiot Brother, starring Paul Rudd, and 2018's Juliet Naked, starring Ethan Hawke. But if you were a 90s teen like me, you might remember his music videos work for bands like the Lemonheads, which before he switched to directing was their bassist and a founding member. Also music videos for The Breeders, Self, Ash, Nada Surf's popular video, Foo Fighters' Big Me and Learn to Fly, and Shudder to Think, whose music for First Love, Last Ride was composed by the band. Jeff Buckley, Liz Phair, Nina Pearson of the Cardigans, Cheap Trick senior Robin Zander, and Billy Corgan sang on a few of the songs in collaboration with Shudder to Think. It had a CD and cassette release back in 1998, so this is the first time on vinyl released through Sony Legacy. No fancy color variant here, just 2,000 copies pressed on classic black. Up next is the penultimate release in this category, and it goes to The Virgin Suicides, which this new release celebrates the 25th anniversary of Sofia Coppola's directorial debut. We're on a roll right now with Sofia Coppola's soundtracks being re-released on RSD. Last year, if you remember, was the 2 LP deluxe reissue edition of the Lost in Translation soundtracks, which I have right here and was hands down one of my favorite soundtrack releases of last year. Playground Love by Air was back then and still is now the standout track from this soundtrack. There's also artists like Hart, Todd Lundgren, Sloan, Al Green, and many more. This special anniversary edition features reimagined artwork, an additional 7-inch vinyl of Bread's Make It With You, and new liner notes from the film music supervisor Brian Wiesel. This had its first release back on Emperor Norton in the year 2000, then Rhino Records reissued it in 2020 for its 20th anniversary, which was an RSD release, then on Rhino again back in 2023, and now for this RSD. If for some reason you missed out on any of those releases, you'll definitely get a chance this time to get your hands on this new blue and white vinyl pressing at 5,000 copies and its 7-inch flexi disc of the Bread song Make It With You. Do you like the Harry Potters? Because this is how I'm closing out the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the 2000 releases category. Because if you do, you are in luck, my friend, because you're getting 4 of them: Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Harry Potter and the Chambers of Secret, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. What's crazy is that before those 4 new RSD releases, all of them were only available as 2 LP picture discs, released for the first time only back in 2018. Until Rhino Records, which clearly owns this year's RSD, released this ginormous box set last November for a cool $420. Since Rhino is not run by idiots and not wanting to leave money on the table, they're now releasing the first 4 separately and in new color variants. The first 3 scores were composed by legendary and still alive and kicking John Williams, and the 4th one was composed by Patrick Doyle. All 4 RSD exclusive releases are getting a 2 140-gram LP pressing on clear vinyl at 4,000 copies each. All right, ending this with my favorite category, and probably yours as well if you've been following what I'm doing on here. It's the Exploitation, Grindhouse, and Horror Movies category, which this year is pretty sleazy in its diversity. I'm starting it up with my favorite vinyl soundtrack label, Varese Sarabande, which surprisingly only has 1 RSD release this year. Even more surprising is that it's not from their real cult label, which started out last RSD with their Orca and Black Girl releases. Seems that it might already be the end of the line for this really cool label I was championing, even did a video about it. So who knows, maybe they still got something up their sleeves, we shall see. Instead, we are getting a reissue of 1988's The Serpent and the Rainbow from Wes Craven and score by Brad Fiedel. The first vinyl pressing of it was back in 1988. For this pressing, we're getting the film mixes of the score spread out over 2 LPs, which is pressed on Voodoo Blue vinyl packaged in a gatefold jacket featuring liner notes by Randall D. Larson. It's an RSD first release, meaning it's a limited edition release that's sold first at participating indie record stores for a limited period before it becomes widely available everywhere else. 1,800 copies were pressed for said limited edition. Up next, we got some Italian Gothic horror with 1974's Nuda per Satana, or Nude for Satan, directed by Luigi Bazzella and starring Rita Galderoni and Stelio Candelli. It's about a man who stops at a remote castle hoping to get medical help for an injured woman, only to find the inhabitants mirror the darker sides of the woman and himself. The score was done by Alberto Baltambembo, who, looking through his choreography, he also scored Excuse Me Padre, Are You Horny?, which sounds like a fun time at the movies, but he also scored the Gestapo Last Orgy, which sounds less fun. This is a UK-only release, first time being put out on vinyl from Saw Record. 500 copies of transparent green vinyl were pressed, and it also comes with liner notes. Moving on with an unreleased Goblin soundtrack, which now will be available for the first time in any format, and that's for 1981's L'Altro Inferno, or The Other Hell. It was written and directed by Bruno Mattei and Claudio Fragasso, and starring Franca Stoppi and Carlo De Mejo. This movie was made to specifically cash in on the success of Dario Argento's Inferno, even if it has little to nothing in common with it. It's about a priest who investigates paranormal activities at a nun's convent, where a deep dark secret is about to resurface in the guise of murder. Could the devil be behind this, or is this just what Mother Superior wants everyone to believe? Ooh. The Goblin score for this consists of various tracks and outtakes from other movies, Beyond the Darkness, Patrick, and Il Fantastico Viaggio del Bargazzo Mark, which was the 4th full-length album from Goblin that have been accurately put together for this special and unique release. It is an RSD exclusive release through Cinevox Records. 1,200 copies were pressed on clear fuchsia colored vinyl, which comes with insert and new liner notes. The last 2 vinyl soundtracks come from Grindhouse Releasing, always doing the Lord's work when it comes to their Blu-ray or vinyl soundtrack releases. First one being the soundtrack for the US version of Lucio Fulci's 1981's The Beyond, retitled 7 Doors of Death. The reason for the new title at the time was so that they could get an R rating instead of an X, but also to add a different soundtrack, and they had to edit out some gore scenes. And now for the first time ever on vinyl, we are getting the alternate score used for the US release. It's been lovingly remastered from the original stereo master tapes. The US rescore was done by electronic music pioneers Mitch and Ira Uspet. It is an RSD first release. 950 copies of this deluxe Skateful edition was pressed on bloodshot colored vinyl. It includes a full color double-sided insert and liner notes by Sean Lewis and Leon Marcello. And last but certainly not least is one of the all-time Italian exploitation /grindhouse /42nd Street mainstay with 1981's Cannibal Ferox, also known as Make Them Die Slowly. It is one of the most famous, notorious cannibal movies directed by Umberto Lenzi, and the score was done by Buddy Baglioni, which is the alias used by composers Roberto Donati and Flamma Maglioni. This was first released on vinyl back in 2014 and 2018 through One Way Static Records. But being that Grindhouse Releasing is bound this new version, I'm sure this will feel like the very first time. What will make it so is that it's been remastered from the original stereo master tapes. It's pressed on bloody red vinyl and packaged in a deluxe gatefold jacket. 950 copies of this RSD limited run / original focus release will be available to own. And you know what? That is it for this year's complete list of vinyl soundtracks available on Record Store Day 2025. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up so I can get more visibility out there. Subscribe if you haven't. That does help too. In the comment section below, let me know what soundtracks are on your RSD 2025 wish list. What's the one at the top of your list? More vinyl soundtracks related videos coming up soon, so stay tuned. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll say to you, ciao bye for now.